Hey guys, welcome to another special edition of 5 on Fry with me, Ajay Fry. This episode is special because this Sunday it's my dad, Pat Fry's 60th birthday, so I thought I would dedicate an entire episode to him. Now, while my dad does enjoy being in the spotlight, he isn't such a fan when people turn it on him when he's not prepared for it. So hopefully none of this bothers you, Dad. I love ya! I say let's get started. Here's 5 reasons that my dad, Pat Fry, is awesome. If you enjoy the weird and creative things that I put out into the world, you really should be thanking my dad. Right from the very first gift that he ever got me, a fuzzy, colorful ball with bells inside that would stimulate my tactile senses, my auditory senses, and my visual senses, he's always been nurturing my imagination as well. Whether it was showing me and teaching me about painting little miniature figurines for playing D&D, or teaching me about how to use our old bulky 1980s VHS video camera even before I was strong enough to lift it up onto my shoulder, or creating a playroom for my brother and I where we kept all of our toys and where we could explore our imaginations without worry of destroying any important furniture or items that belonged to my parents, or entrusting me with our old Amiga 500 computer when I was maybe too young to be using a computer on my own. My dad always encouraged my brother and I to explore our imaginations and develop our own sense of creativity. He also let me listen to audio cassettes featuring stand-up routines by George Carlin and Steve Martin when I was, again, maybe too young to actually understand the material, but I got a sense of the rhythm and timing of stand-up comedy. So now when I hear myself speak and I don't hear a bit of my dad or a bit of my mom, I'll hear a bit of George Carlin or Steve Martin. And given that before I was born, in fact, even before I was conceived, my parents conspired to have a blonde, blue-eyed entertainer named AJ, you could accuse them of being controlling, manipulative parents, meddling in their children's lives. But I honestly never felt pressure to do anything, only encouraged and supported with the tools that I needed in order to become the weird, creative person that I am. So thanks for that, Dad. Like I mentioned before, my dad does enjoy the spotlight, and like me, he's a bit of a performer himself. If you're Canadian like me, you've no doubt at some point heard his voice behind the character of Dad on the hit children's television show Caillou. If you like comic book superhero films, you might have caught him being disemboweled in the film Punisher Warzone. Back when I used to perform improv at a comedy club called The Institution in Ottawa, my dad even performed with me. We had a troupe called A Side of Fries. And back when I was a young comic starting out in Toronto, my dad came down from Ottawa to perform in an episode of Late Night Gigging, a live sketch show and sketch troupe that I used to be a part of. In fact, we remounted one of our Late Night Gigging sketches for my 30th birthday party extravaganza variety show.
How's Dad, everyone? And my dad, Pat Fry.
Such a fun memory. And if all that wasn't cool enough, he was recently Santa Claus in a commercial for Canada Post, and kids all over the world can write to Santa Claus through Canada Post, so I think of anyone in the world who's got a legit claim on being Santa Claus, it's my dad! And while I'm not exactly proud of this, I'm not exactly ashamed either. Within my friend group, I am known for my dad jokes, and I must admit I learned from the best. And in recent years, I can sense a little bit of pain in my dad when I don't laugh at his dad jokes. And the reality is, it's just that I'm frustrated that he got there quicker than I did. But on occasion, when in the company of my father, I'll get to that punchline first or even before he saw it coming, and I'll be rewarded with one of those big, beautiful belly laughs. Those are the best. Already 4 minutes in and only on number 3, this is gonna be a long episode. My dad definitely has a sense for adventure. Shortly after marrying my mom, when she was 18 and he was only 19, they moved across the country. They lived in both Prince Rupert and Kitimat, BC, also Lethbridge, Alberta. They went out to the East Coast and lived in Halifax, where my brother was born, after I was born in Toronto. They ended up raising us in Ottawa and have recently moved to Niagara Falls. My dad passed on that sense of adventure to myself, and in fact, when I was 18, he got me a job doing voices for a series of educational cartoons and puppet shows, but they were recorded in Beijing. Yeah, at the age of 18, I spent a whole month on the literal other side of the world, living and working in a culture I was entirely unfamiliar with. It opened my eyes and raised my awareness of this global village that we live in, but I gotta admit, the whole time I was incredibly homesick. Quite honestly, I really missed my parents. So much of the time that I was there, I just kept focusing on how great that moment would be when I would land back in Ottawa and my parents would be waiting for me at the airport and I could go up and give them a big hug and have that emotional release of knowing that I'm home. I actually didn't get that magical moment I was hoping for because my parents were actually a little bit late for when the flight arrived, so I was standing around waiting for them. But what it taught me is that you can't fixate on a moment in the future and put all of your emotional energy into that. What you should do instead is just focus on the moment that you're in and try to make every moment count. If someone asked me what my father's most important virtue is, I would have to say loyalty. Loyalty to family, more specifically. My father comes from a big family. He's got 4 brothers and 4 sisters, and he was the 6th born. I'm sure he'd agree that, compared to many people around the world, he had a great childhood. In fact, I've never really heard him complain about it, except for the fact that he and his brothers and sisters used to fight a lot. So when he became a parent, his biggest concern was that his kids might end up fighting too. And while my dad did make every effort to ensure that my brother and I wouldn't fight, and that we would be best friends, it didn't really work out. We certainly didn't fight all the time, but my brother and I did have our issues. But on the positive side, I don't think we fought once since I stopped having to live next door to my brother. And today I couldn't imagine a situation or scenario that would cause my brother and I to fight ever again. Though just to be safe, we shouldn't play NHL 93 on the SNES, just as a precaution. While Neil Patrick Harris, Elton John, and George Takei might take issue with the sentiment that behind every great man there's a great woman, it certainly applies to my father. He picked a winner. His high school sweetheart, his soulmate, my mom, Sharon. I'm confident that my dad would agree with me when I say the coolest thing about him is her. And what's even cooler is that after nearly 40 years of marriage, they're still in love and a shining example of how to make a marriage work. I mean, it's borderline disgusting how awesome my parents work together. I have been their son for 32 years, and honestly, I have no recollection of them fighting ever. I think I might maybe have a memory of them, raising their voices at one another, and I swear this is true, if the memory's authentic, that it was over a game of Scrabble. My parents have always been my role models, of course my father especially so, because like him, I am a cisgendered, straight white guy. And in the years before I got married, it would be a fair statement that I had a lot of luck with the ladies. But for all the nice guys out there who are unlucky with the ladies, perhaps it is because I had such a great role model in terms of how to treat women. Maybe it wasn't luck at all, just success based on the fact that I respect women, and I learned that from watching the way that my dad treats my mom. And actually, it's her 60th birthday in May, and I'll tell you all about her then. But for now, it's my dad's 60th birthday, so a sincere happy birthday and thank you for everything, Dad. That's it for this special edition of 5 on Fry. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the future.